Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone 12:30 PM UK time on Friday, July the 19th. Let's get straight into the questions. I've got no particular agenda that I want to cover off. Andy Martin is first. Says, morning mate, will the Spurs youngsters break through this season? Did you see much of Archie Gray last season? So my first real look at Archie Gray was on Wednesday night watching Tottenham against Hearts. Very impressed. He played centre back, which is obviously not his position. We know he's ideally going to be a central midfielder, could also play inverted from right back for Tottenham. So yeah, pretty pleased with what I see from him. I used words on our Tottenham Arse podcast, myself and Clayton have already recorded, be out on Patreon later today. I used the word decisive about him, Andy. He's decisive in his movements, in his passing, his decision making, whether he goes and tackles, which is a really nice trait for a player so young. In terms of the Tottenham youngsters, I've done a very, very large piece on that Patreon podcast that will be out later today on the Spurs kids. Spoiler, I'm extremely excited in terms of actual breakthrough to the team this year. Lucas Bergvall's got an amazing chance. He is going to be in the squad as a regular, and I think there's every chance he'll break into the team. Mikey Moore is obviously an exceptional talent at 16. A couple of others you might be unfamiliar with to really keep an eye on are Tyrese Hall, who's a good ball playing. Number 6 kind of recently been converted to a number 6, can also play number 8 position. And the one that's really caught the eye on Wednesday night, although only played 20 minutes, is Will Lancashire up front as a centre forward. So yeah, there's a few names then. There's a few more as well. Alfie Devine, Ashley Phillips. There's a real good crop of kids. This is the best crop of kids that Tottenham have ever had in my period supporting the club. So there's a lot of excitement for the future at the moment, which is nice. Billy Taylor says, hey Jimbo, any chance you still have the first ever Planet FPL episode hanging around somewhere? Would be a fun one to release on Patreon. Oh, it exists somewhere. You can find it. Might take a Google search because I know the audio platforms can only store a certain amount, and I don't know how many podcasts we're on, but I'm going to guess it's in sort of the 1500 bracket or so. But yeah, it exists. Search for it. You'll find it. It certainly exists somewhere in the internet world. FPL team first says, hello mate, I've missed you. Good to see you back in full swing of things. Good luck with everything this season. Thank you, Pete, and good luck to you too. I'm glad that FPL has not decided to put on their website some form of planning tool, so everyone will still use yours. For those who don't know, FPL team is my go-to absolute one bit of FPL content essential that I absolutely need always in terms of future planning, and even more so this year with the ability to roll more transfers. Jerry Darmiu says, hello James, I have a question regarding one of your correspondents. Okay, that's interesting. Before I even read this, let me tell you that I'm going to defend it. Gary Robinson, who covers Man United, has his Twitter name changed because whenever you mention him as COTC, I can't press it. Okay, I don't need to defend Gary. Gary deleted his Twitter account, mate. Simple as that. So he was my cat playing. I think when we started, it was kind of a requirement that we wanted all the guys to be quite active on Twitter, but I don't think anyone's as fussed about it so much anymore. Plus, as well, you're not going to be short of people who are going to have opinions on Manchester United. So, no, Gary was a bit sick and tired of what was going on in the Twitter space, so deleted his Twitter account. That's why you won't find him, mate. Jerry also says, with Gabriel, Saliba, Vardiol priced at 6, is there a case to go for Trent, who is 7 million and has better fixtures in the first 6 or 7? Of course there is, yeah, absolutely. You could hold off Arsenal to perhaps Gameweek 6, and Liverpool coming to 2 away games, Wolves away, Palace away, 6-7. It's not the most difficult, but yeah, absolutely. I don't think it'd be the worst strategy in the world to have Trent first 5, downgrade that, Gameweek 6 to an Arsenal defender. You got an extra million or so in the bank at that point. Yep, absolutely fine. Look, there's going to be a lot of different ways to play this. I might be wildcarding in game week 2 is a possibility. That the more I think about it, yes, the bench boost game week 1 is something I'll speak about quite a bit in forthcoming weeks. It's definitely a possibility, but no decision will be made. No decision will be made on that till final week for certain. There's too much can happen between now and in between. But yeah, Trent at 7. Depends, right? I think we're probably all of the opinion at the moment that the Arsenal players have been priced right. Trent, based on last year's performance, absolutely wouldn't be worth 7 million. Based on his performance a couple of years ago, he'd be a shoo-in in every team at 7 million. It's a really good run of fixtures. I like, and there is a school of thought to say, have Trent, Salah and Haaland at the start, because you can obviously downgrade from those 3. That makes the rest of your team quite difficult in terms of how you put it together. I'd certainly acknowledge that. But yeah, I think this with Trent, you could sell that as an idea with Mo Salah. You can also sell, Salah to Saka even over a similar period there, right? And you can also sell similar on Erling Haaland, perhaps game week 4 into Villa, Ollie Watkins or something similar. These players are going to be harder to get, right, if you go without them at the start. That's the big question. You're going to go without Trent, Salah and Haaland. I think you just need an awareness. And it's fine to say, I'm not going now. But what if you change your mind? How are you going now? That's all. Most of us will have wild cards that can fix that sort of things. I wouldn't stress about it too much. But yes, there is a case to go Trent. I would say at the moment I'm more likely to go with Trent than an Arsenal defender. But I would also say I'll be going with Josko Gvardiol most likely as well, unless I bench boosted game week 1 and wildcard in game week 2, in which case I'll probably go without him. Jerry also says, regarding goalkeepers, do you think it's a must to start with? There's no must. You've got the wrong channel, mate. Is it a must to start with 4.5 million goalkeepers and their 4.0 backups? Areola and Fabianski as an example. Is there a case to go for 5 million goalkeepers such as Pope, who is 0.5 more than Burn? The consciousness I'd have on someone like Nick Pope is that Newcastle may well invest in that position. There's obviously been heavy links with Aaron Ramsdale. That may obviously not happen, but I think probably tells us there's an awareness that Newcastle have been looking at a goalkeeper. I don't think the addition of Vlachodimos players from Nottingham Forest is going to change that too much. So I think Newcastle probably have, not a desperation now that Nick Pope's fit, but probably an awareness that a goalkeeper is on the agenda for them at some point. So I'd be aware of buying someone like that. You got to think. Game week 1, August 17th. 3 game weeks before the transfer window shuts. Now, if you're looking at someone like Pope, and obviously with goalkeeper, you probably don't want to piss about with that too much. That would make me nervous, I think. I'd rather go somewhere where I was, like a Jordan Pickford at Everton is not going to change unless Jordan Pickford moved clubs, and I don't think that's particularly likely. In terms of the must go with the 4.5s and 4.0, no. I don't subscribe to that. I think 2 4.5s of rotation is obviously an option. I think there's some very good options at 5 million, which includes Jordan Pickford. I think even this year, if you want to start with Arsenal involvement, unless there is real security or understanding, say on Jurriën Timber's minutes for Arsenal, if you want an Arsenal defensive one, David Raya will be your cheapest way in. I don't mind that, and we would kind of frown upon that generally, but I don't mind that. Actually, if you compared, say, Ederson with the City guys, then you're like, no, I've got all these City defenders at 5.5. No, or only 0.5 for Gvardiol. Obviously, with Arsenal, it's a jump. With Alisson, you can go both ways. Trent, Van Dijk, you might be able to come all the way down to Jarell Quansah. So I don't even mind David Raya as a 5.5 option, who's obviously got decent ownership at the moment. There's loads of ways to skin it. I mean, how to play with goalkeepers in fantasy. There's definitely not a must way to do it. No way. FPL Lighthouse says, hi James, hope you're well. Are Everton now doomed? Well, no. But it's very, very concerning news this morning for Everton that the proposed takeover, forgive me, I forget the name of the group that was going to buy them. It sounds like the money that needs to be paid off to the 777 Partners Group that had previously were attempting to buy the football club, though I don't think they ever had the money to do so, in my opinion. The money that they'll be owed back is quite complicated for anybody, therefore, to try and buy the football club at the moment. That is a little bit scary for Everton, but that's early news this morning. I don't think we should jump down to a conclusion that they're doomed. I understand at this stage there's no concern in terms of the building of the new stadium or anything. But I do see Everton regularly being linked with players, more than most clubs at the moment, and that might put that sort of thing on the back burner. Yeah, look, I think there is concern for Everton. I said on this pod 2.5 years ago, there will be 5 years of pain for Everton. We're hitting the halfway point. I think there's more pain to come for a couple of years. They've got the right manager in charge at the moment to see them through this period. That's what I believe, before the football club can begin to think about progressing to what it wants to be. And Everton are a very big football club. But the idea that it's doomed at the moment, no, we shouldn't write that necessarily straight away. Someone else may come in and want to buy the football club. But clearly at some point there is going to need to be a transfer of that football club into some safer hands. That goes without saying. Perlo's Pen says, hi James, from the entire price list, which do you think are the 3 biggest mistakes? Also, any nice plans for your week off? Mistakes, let's cover that first. First thing to say, I think every year I come on this podcast, and I've learnt not to speak about it too much, but every year I'm like, they've priced so many players too cheap. That's how I always feel. I would credit them to say I think they've done a much, much better job with the pricing this year, and I'd like to say well done to them. In terms of pricing that's wrong, I think the clues probably come with the ownership. So for me, the two standouts are Watkins and Isak. I think both should have been priced higher. I said yesterday on the podcast I thought Watkins should have at least been in the 10 bracket. I also said at the start of the week that I thought if Alexander Isak was 11 million, I'd probably still start with him. So I think those two. That said, there's no guarantee I'll start with Watkins, by the way, with Villa's first two. But I do think he's underpriced based on what he did last year. And I think similar to Alexander Isak is a player for me that if he stays fit all season is capable of being the highest scoring player in the game. So I think those two stand out. For a third, I think too obvious. I mean, they've done pretty well. There's no one I've looked at and I've gone, oh my God, he's way too much. I definitely wouldn't have him. But there's not that many that I've gone, oh yeah, they're well underpriced. I mean, Watkins and Isak are the two for me that I'd like to highlight. In terms of any nice plans for week off, some of the community have just gone, taking a week off. Yeah, so I'm planning to take the week off beginning July the 29th. What we're actually going to do is our Patreon content, our podcast on Patreon next week, we're actually going to move to the following week. That's what the patrons have voted for. So me and Clates, we've already started recording a 5-part special on 5 clubs who fell onto hard times. So Darlington, Russian Diamonds, Gretna, Malaga, and Anzi Makachaka. Yeah, remember them? That's going to be out week beginning 29th, so there will be some content for our patrons that week, and you'll be able to rejoin. For those who want to sign up to Patreon, you'll be able to do so again from the 30th of July, and that week's worth of content will be available from basic tier, so you can have them 5 podcasts from £3. Next week, obviously, content will continue. My plan on the week off is I'm going to take Harry away for a few days. I haven't decided yet if this is going to be several day trips or if I'm just going to take him somewhere myself for 3 or 4 days during the week, which will be me taking him around seaside resorts and having parties in the UK. No drinking, obviously. Harry's kind of party as a 5-year-old child. So yeah, I want to take him to a few places. There's a few definitely on the agenda. It's difficult to move between them on days though, so it might just be better to do them as day trips. I haven't decided yet. But primarily, I'll be spending some time with my son, giving my wife a little bit of a break as well, because she's going to take the week off the following week. Well, we'll do Correspondent Week, which will begin on August the 5th. 20 podcasts inside 5 days, one on each club with our respective correspondents. We just need to define it, but I think it's going to be 4 a day. We haven't decided. Last year we did it, started Monday evening, then this Saturday afternoon. I think we're going to go for Monday morning through to Friday night this year. So little break, and the recording for me will start on Friday the 2nd for that as well. So yeah, it's not going to be a huge break. I'm going to try and take the majority of the back end of next week off because Harry actually finishes school on Wednesday. It'd be good for me to take a break. So I only took like a week off or so before the Euros. I mean, another week ahead of Correspondent Week will do me good. And I'll be very honest, I may even take a week off in the September international break as well. Next year, I'm taking all of June off. You're all on notice. I know I'm not covering a Club World Cup. Thank you for the question. Who's next? Sam Brennan. No, he's not. He can come in the next. Steve says, hi, James. Hope you and the family had a great summer. I know it's early, but who do you think has been the signing of the transfer window so far? Oof. That's Michael Olise for Bayern Munich. Obviously, United have got a bit of a coup there with Lenny Yoro in the door. He was wanted by pretty much everybody. I can't profess to have seen him, but 18-year-old centre-back. This is the profile of player that Manchester United, I think, should be looking at more in terms of investing in the future. Quite often, United buy people like, sorry to name, but example, Casemiro. Fixes a problem for 6 months, but just creates another problem further down the line. They need to think about longer-term planning. I think it's good for Manchester United that they're making that sort of signing. But I think most of the big deals are probably still to be done, aren't they? With obviously the Euros and the Copa America only just finishing. So not too many that have happened to speak of so far. I'm just kind of glancing at the 20 teams and having a think. I could say Tottenham and Archie Gray. There you go. Sam Brennan says, hi James, if Spurs had signed one championship player and put them in the starting lineup for the whole season, who would you get to not be too big of a downgrade? I mean, I don't watch enough championship football, mate. I'm inclined to say someone who was close to promotion last year, so maybe something like Crescencio Somerville, maybe. Would maybe be a decent shout. That feels like a reasonable off the top of my head guess, I think. Joe Pickles says, genuine question, would you rather Spurs won their first 5 games of the season but finish 7th? Or you win FPL? What's the use of winning the first 5 games? We won 8 of the first 10 last year, mate. What's the use of that? Can I take something better for Spurs, please? You know the answer to this anyway. James Wright, excuse me, says, any decent alternatives to Sky Fantasy Football? FPL is one. I will play Telegraph. Lots have asked about potentially doing content for Telegraph. I don't think it's worthwhile. It's something that I will cover for our patrons when I deem it worthwhile. I suspect that's probably not even going to be once a month in Telegraph, but I'm happy to do something and cover it in bits and pieces there. Not going to be enough interest, I think, to cover it on a weekly basis for people. Telegraph has some skill sets that would be useful. Major difference being no captaincy. In Telegraphs, you need a lot of patience at the start of the season for that. There are other formats, obviously. Dream Team is one. You've got your fan team types and stuff. I mean, Telegraph's probably the one a lot of the Sky community are going to go and play. But the honest answer is, James, is it's irreplaceable. I make no apologies for saying it was my favourite format of fantasy football. As we covered on the podcast, I think we did last Wednesday or Thursday, we immediately looked into the possibility of, was there a chance of not saving the game but creating our own? There's no way to do that in the time frame. I hope that someone can put something together for next season that will bring the game back. The game doesn't need the big prize money that was on offer. It was just a fantastic fantasy football format game to play. So alternatives, yes. As good, no, unfortunately. Sad. That was probably one of my worst moment in fantasy football, I think, getting that news last Tuesday. Nothing to do with the fact we'd released the podcast earlier in the day. I was generally gutted. And it did for a few days as well really impact my enthusiasm for FPL as well this year as well. I'm sure now that Sky's not going, I mean, there's every chance with Sky not being there, there's every chance I'll do better in FPL this year. That is a possibility because my mind won't be distracted to Sky. That could go the other way as well, by the way. So there's alternatives. Anything is good, James? No. Let's hope someone can put something together for next year to bring it back. It's too tight on the timescale to launch a new game. There's too many hurdles in the way. It's not as simple as just creating a website and doing it. There's a lot behind the scenes going on with, players' names and gaming licenses. It's not straightforward. Daniel Evans says, thoughts on Muniz? Decent forward. I think price reasonably at 6 million. Had a quieter end to the end of the season. It does feel like there is a possibility that his scoring feats that he had over sort of that February to April period might have been a one-off. I do like him. I said that as soon as I saw him when I went and saw Tottenham play them in the League Cup last August. He stood out. I thought I made a point of saying that I really like this young forward. Fulham might invest. They obviously didn't last year. They obviously felt a requirement to bring Breuer into the squad, believing presumably that Jimenez and Muniz wasn't enough. Now that Muniz has progressed and established himself, they may feel differently about that, but it's the sort of one I'd have an awareness. Could they buy a forward? They might. Might be one that comes on radar, particularly for myself, if wildcarding in Gameweek 2. Because although Manchester United away shouldn't be feared, there is certainly a very good run for Fulham, sort of games 2 to 6. Leicester and Ipswich in 2 and 3. So it's the sort of one that would get ignored by the majority, and potentially offers an opportunity for those who may wildcard in Game Week 2. Sounds ridiculous talking about wildcard in Game Week 2, but I do generally think it's a very feasible strategy. I wouldn't start with him, no, I don't think. Most cases, no, I don't think that. You're better off jumping up to 2 million or so to Havertz, or $1.5 million to Solanke. I think generally speaking, if it allows you a more powerful midfield, sure. But I probably want a bit more security and confidence in what Fulham are doing to be able to pick him, is what I'd say. JP says, how was Walker in the team of the tournament for the Euros? You'd have to ask UEFA, mate. Daniel Evans says, what do you think to Leon Bailey? Leon Bailey was great last year and certainly an option at 6.5. Again, Villa look like they're doing a lot of business. We think Moussa Diaby may leave. That may mean someone else might be incoming. I'd be aware of that sort of thing. Super run for Villa, game weeks 3 to 6. I certainly don't want to be without Ollie Watkins for that period. If I wanted Leon Bailey for that period, it would be to go with Ollie Watkins, I think. I think that's important to say. I would, if it's like, I want a Villa attacker, pay the extra for Watkins off that would be the advice. Yeah, did really well for me last year. I held him for a good 15-20 week period, I think. And yeah, it'll come under consideration, but I think it's probably more one I'd want to come back to rather than start with. That's my instinct at the moment. I think like at the same price, I prefer Garnacho to start with. It might be that the answer is Harvey Barnes, subject to his pre-season and Anthony Gordon's return to Newcastle as well. JP says, what's happening with your Sky Pods now? Are you guys going to change to a new fantasy game? So kind of covers off the original point. We were obviously going to do something different. Me and Clayton actually had a big chat this morning about some ideas we've got. It won't be another fantasy format game. It's not worthwhile. From a content creation perspective and in terms of your own interests, I don't think that there's enough there to worthwhile or warrant going down the route of covering a different game, quite frankly. So I've got a few ideas that we're bouncing around at Summit to kind of have a new Wednesday regular slot podcast. And all will be confirmed soon. I can't tell you because we haven't decided factually yet, but there's a few ideas being bounced about. Possibly something non-FPL related, possibly something FPL related. We're going to have a think. Ruben Villa says, morning mate, thoughts on Leif Davis as an FPL asset? So I described him yesterday as, essentially the player that's got the potential to be this year's Alfie Doughty. Brilliant numbers for Ipswich last year from left back, really talented player. Might even be someone who comes under consideration for England, considering the problems England have got in that position. His whole teammates are 4.0 though, basically. That's worth acknowledging. I also think there are a number of really, really good 4.5 million defenders. And with Ipswich starting with Liverpool and Manchester City, I do not foresee me going down that route at all, personally. But one, much like Doughty, who may well develop and become interesting, possibly even at a cheaper price than 4.5. So, yeah, he'll absolutely be one that will be, part of a kind of a watch list early on, if you will. Owen White says, I like the idea of getting one player from each of the top 6 teams to cover them all. Who do you think is the best option from each? Okay. Vardiel. if you want me to go down, that's the City player I cannot see me starting without, to be honest. Josko Vardiol, Havertz. We're just talking pound for pound here in terms of trying to fit these all in. Havertz, it's got to be Salah, I think, because of, as covered yesterday, the uncertainty about Liverpool's other attackers at the moment. Got to be Mo, I think. Am I including Villa in there? I guess I am. Ollie Watkins. Let's go Newcastle as well. Isak, Chelsea and Nkunku. As long as he has a good pre-season. Tottenham is a bit more wide open. I can make a strong case for Porro though. And who have I missed out here? I have missed out someone here. Shit, Manchester United. I think Garnacho, actually. Harry Melhush says, is Trent in your current draft? Yes. But that could absolutely change. Definitely. But yes, if I looked into the team right now, he's sitting there right now. Sean Caddian says, top 6 for this season in order. Oh, gosh. Do I have to? This is the answer I don't like saying. Top 6 in order. Arsenal first. Man City second. Dennis wide open. I haven't thought about this that much. It's still easiest to say Liverpool third. It's still easiest. But I think they'll be further away from winning it this season than they were last season. Then I'm tempted to say Newcastle, Tottenham. One or the other. Then Chelsea, I think. Villa's going to be really dependent on how they adjust to what's going to be very new for them this year with the Champions League. I think we see that with Newcastle last year. And under the new format, there'll be probably a much bigger demand on Villa. You've got minimum 8 group games. Highly likely that they'll at least hit the playoff round. You in the playoff round. It's very conceivable Villa could play 12 Champions League games this year and not even get to a quarter-final. So there's a much bigger demand on that this year. And also there's been quite a bit of churn. We know the reasons why. I see Manchester United getting better as it goes on once they probably change. And so I wouldn't rule them out. And Manchester United might change manager in September and be 10th and then might go on and have a great rest of the season, right? So that's generally how I feel about it. At the moment, I wouldn't see them finishing top 4, personally. Although I'd certainly acknowledge that Lisandro Martinez's return is going to make a huge difference for them. I think those places sort of 3 to 8 for very much up for grabs. They could kind of be in any order. And we've got a transfer window open. I think the easiest thing to say at the moment is Liverpool third. I do think Newcastle will be much better this season. Much, much better. And I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle finished third, actually. They too might be changing manager if someone comes looking for Eddie Howe. So no name suggested there, obviously, Football Association. But I've been saying this for months. I do really think Arsenal will win the league this year. Philip Setzer says, hi James, good luck this season. Do you think that making Haaland, Salah not universally owned allows us to be less scared of the EO and actually choose stronger teams overall? Look, it's great, right? Across the ticker, you can see all the players are listed at over 10% owned at the moment. And it wasn't really till I looked at it and I saw Haaland and Salah's ownership together and realised that currently there are roughly about at least 2/5 of teams, considering there'll be teams out there that have got both, is about 2/5 of teams don't have either currently. So what do these teams look like? Yes, there are going to be teams out there. And I wouldn't be against them that have Palmer, Saka, Foden, and Godat and Isak, Watkins, Havertz. Still strong, man. You've still got captaincy options, but Heung-min Son. Still got options within that, right? You're just not going with it. So, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. There's definitely a benefit to the game and everybody's enjoyment that Erling Haaland is not going to be 82% owned or whatever he was last season. That's good. And we might get to a place where his ownership does jump up massively. But I can say with near certainty now, it is not going to get that high during the course of this season. And I think that's great. Who is next? We've got a few deletes. FPL team, do you think there is any chance Cancelo gets back into the City team, pushing Vardy to centre-back? As far as I'm aware, Pete, they'll be trying to do a deal with Barcelona to make that deal permanent. And I think if it's not done, Cancelo will probably still go somewhere else. That seems to be the scenario at the moment. So if you're asking that question from a Gvardiol concern perspective, no, I wouldn't particularly. It's more about just Vardy where he's going to play, right? Remember, he could end up playing like a really defensive fullback if they decide to do something different and start playing Doku regularly on the right-hand side, for example. I don't know. But if he plays where he played in the last couple of months of last season, yeah, I don't want to fight that personally. But again, maybe not. I might fight it in game week 1 if I'm wildcard in game week 2. Mr. Lucian says, João Pedro didn't join Brighton for their Japan tour. Best replacement for a budget player. I mean, look, there's a number of reasons why that could be the case. I've seen speculation of broken or cracked rib this morning. I've seen speculation of it's down to personal circumstances. I did a piece on Patreon yesterday on Talking Tactics, which our patrons should all have a look at, on what to expect from Brighton. I'd be a bit concerned for whoever plays number 9 for them and their potential returns. I think their wide players, whoever plays the wide positions, might be more interesting for them this season in any case. Is there anything else good there at sort of 5.5-ish? Adam Armstrong, maybe. Jump up to Chris Woods. If you can get some clarity on, all start up front for Everton, because they do have a good, decent run of fixtures at the start. John Duran, if he moves, 6 million. But personally, I'd probably shove the money up and drop something in midfield would probably be more the advice, actually. Marco LW says, Fulham and Nottingham Forest have a great starting fixtures. What do you think about Andreas Pereira, Morgan Gibbs-White as picks? And would you pick some other players from those teams? Thank you so much. I prefer Hudson-Odoi, I think, at the million saving. I spoke about Forest yesterday and said that I think if it wasn't for the opening 3 fixtures they had, I wouldn't be that keen. I think in the case of Andreas Pereira, there's been quite a lot of speculation with Fulham and Emil Smith-Rowe. Like, what's the impact of that sort of... I don't want to be picking a player like that at the moment, so with an Andreas Pereira, so that would be a definite no-no. If you have a particular preference for Gibbs-White as a short-term over Hudson-Odoi or Alanga or an alternative, I don't mind that, but personally would prefer Hudson-Odoi. Shafwan says, Hi James, who do you think the starting front 3 for Liverpool will be this season? With Gordon Links, think any of the 5 attackers would leave this season? The Gordon links came because of something opportunist, where Newcastle obviously need to sell some players to comply with PSR. And there was a muted conversation happened about Jarrell Quansah, who Liverpool didn't want to sell either. That's the understanding. I would be surprised if that came back to the table. That said, it does seem quite quiet on the front of Liverpool players. It's easy when we look at these Liverpool players and we go, right, so Salah's he's in pre-season, cool. The others aren't, right? Gakpo, Jota, Nunez, Diaz, all gone late in major international tournaments. They're going to be back late. Oh, which one of them? Like, completely forgetting that Liverpool might bloody buy someone. So very difficult to say. I think I have a suspicion that Jota might end up as the 9, but it is only that as a suspicion as the season goes on. But I also think it's just as likely that Liverpool buy someone to play that position. Sean Caddian says, what do you think about defensive double-ups in FPL? Yeah, all for them when the time's right. I think there will be a time and a place where we want to look at it with Arsenal. I think prior to the pricing and the release of the fixtures, I think a lot of us would have had in our mind thinking, yep, double Arsenal defence, maybe even treble Arsenal defence at the start of the season. That looks way less appealing with the fixture list and also now the pricing. But yeah, sure. I mean, if we get accuracy on what Chelsea's lineup is going to be during the course of the season, and then they improve massively this season, why not just have 3 cheap Chelsea defenders if Cole Palmer's not returning for the warrant of a 10.5 midfielder and if Christopher Nkunku's not doing his thing, and their low-scoring team and they're winning games and keeping clean sheets regularly, why not? Yeah, I'm all for it when the time's right, but don't do it for the sake of it. For Greendale says, hi James, can you make an all-time Pisces star sign Premier League 11? No, I bloody can't, mate. Mark, I wouldn't even know what month that was, mate. Marcus Anselm says, all the best to you, the family, the Planet crew, and everyone for the season ahead. Smash a like. Thank you very much, Marcus. Hope you have a good one too. Yes, for those watching live, smash a like, hit the sub button. And if you listen to the audio, yes, that 5-star review does go a long way and is hugely appreciated. And Wilson says, if you had to predict Spurs game week 1 lineup right now, what would you say? Excuse me. Subject to fitness, right? Vicario and the expected back four, so Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie. Bissouma as the 6. Sarr and Maddison, I think. I can see that becoming Bergvall as the 8. Brennan Johnson right, Sonny up front, Werner left. But that doesn't include Kulusevski. That doesn't include Richarlison. Doesn't include Bergvall, Alfie Devine, Mikey Moore. If Tottenham want to invest and buy another attacker that we know that they want to answer these questions, we can have the conversations, but to answer these questions at the moment are really, really rough. It's exactly why you see it every year and he's like, he's locked straight in my team. Okay. So let me give you an example of why I really like Alexander Isak. As I said, like I can't see me starting without him as long as he's fit. He's the best striker at Newcastle. Unquestionable. And he's so good that I'm pretty confident that if Newcastle want to buy another forward, it is only to supplement him rather than replace him. The idea of, give you an example, and I only use him because I've mentioned him previously, but Diogo Jota's locked in my team. Right. When's he back from pre-season? Are Liverpool going to buy a new attacking player? Nah. Don't want any of that. See, every year, he's locked in my team. And then game week 1 comes around and guess what? They're not. Sean Caddian says, what does a day in the life look like for you off stream? Work and Harry. That's it. And Tottenham, obviously. That's it. So depends what day of the week, mate. But a day for me looks like take Harry to school, work, sometimes pick Harry up from school. Today I don't need to because the wife's doing it. Go home, time with family, start prepping for next day's content. That's it. Or next week's content, or as a lot of it's going on at the moment, prep for a whole week's content on Correspondent Week. David Whelan says, hi James, are Everton back in real trouble after the news this morning? Is another Money in Football pod needed on them? It might be, but I'm going to skip Dermot because it did cover quite near the start, but thank you for your question. Will Shaw says, hey James, how do you see Johnson's role for Spurs this year? He's in competition with Kulusevski. He's potentially in competition if Tottenham decide to add someone who can play that position. Mikey Moore has played that position in pre-season. And he's such an unbelievable talent that maybe will put pressure on by the time the season concludes. But as suggested, I think Brennan Johnson is probably the standout Tottenham attacker to go for at the moment. I mean, 6.5 is good value. There is an element of risk. I can't guarantee who's going to start. But as we discussed many times at the back end of last season, he's someone who very much offers a real threat, even as a substitute as well. So I think Brennan Johnson, 6.5 for FPL, is a real prospect. I also have an inkling that I've discussed previously that I can see him ending up as a number 9 potentially in the future. Don't see that being this season. Kevin Holmes says, thoughts on Ian Maatsen? Champions League runner-up. Yeah, decent signing for Villa. Feels a bit unnecessary with Alex Moreno and Luca Dean there, but I'm sure one of them will probably move on. Can also play higher on the left-hand side of midfield as well. Talented player. Feels like a lot of money, but it does for many players who move at the moment. And we know that move was part to scratch backs for both Aston Villa and Chelsea on PSR, with obviously Amari Kellyman going in the other direction. Yeah, good talented player. If you're asking for fantasy, wouldn't be doing that. Sean says, how do you always stay this calm and composed? Why wouldn't I? It's all the drugs I take to help with my sciatica and mellows me out. There's not a reason not to stay calm and composed. Listen, sit next to me at Tottenham and see if you think I'm calm and composed, mate. Will Shaw says, Watkins, Palmer, Eze, Vardy or Haaland. Hang on a minute. Watkins, I presume this is a fantasy question. Watkins, Palmer, Eze, Vardy or Haaland, Bailey, Johnson, Martinez. Geez, typing it out made it pretty obvious. Did it? Look, Ebe Eze is another one who his ownership's really high at the moment. And what if he comes back and tells Palace he wants to leave? We know there's clubs that are interested, and as it stands, I don't think he probably won't move. There's also the element of what I discussed yesterday on Palace, which I mentioned several times last year, of thinking that Eze and Elise, to be good fantasy assets, very much kind of needed each other. Eze's going to need a new wingman. I think there's an impact there on Mateta. Michael Elise is a very, very good footballer. Now, when you typed it out and I see Watkins, Palmer, Vardy, I think, yeah, that's probably the one, isn't it? And in the case of Martinez, you can drop that to like an Ezri Konsa or I did say yesterday Tyrone Mings as an alternative option, but I'd seen Lee Jackson told our Patreon community this morning that Mings probably won't be fit for the start of the season. But yeah, it's probably the top one, but then there'd be a concern there on Eze for me. Eze is no consideration for me at this moment. That is not a player that I'd want to start the season with. If he stays there, sure, game week 4 or better run later on, cool. I don't want to start. Ivan Toney falls into that category as well. I don't want to start with that type of player. Kevin Holmes says, will you play fantasy EFL? No, I don't think so. I will play Gaffa, again, the championship game. I don't know what they've done there with that fantasy EFL. That seems very gimmicky. We've got 72 clubs. Pick 7 players and 2 clubs you think will do well. No, that's good luck. People want to play it. That's not for me, I don't think. Shame. Murphy says, hi James, would you currently favour an Arsenal centre-back and Vardy or Trent and a 5.0 likely Munoz and Maatsen? The Vardy option, mate. Yeah, I don't want to be without that. Again, subject to what I decide strategy at the start of the season, but yeah, Josko Vardy for me is first choice defender in the game, unless I see something pre-season that makes me think his position is changing. And I know there's a lot about the change in the BPS and getting more enabling defenders, and that's all absolutely fine. I'll repeat what I said yesterday, is remember that the goals make your biggest difference to your fantasy performance, and Josko Vardy looked like he was capable of getting one every week in the last sort of 10 games of last season, so yeah, I'd be having some of that personally. Tim Rogers says, nice to see you, mate. No question, just supporting. Good luck this year all. Thank you, Tim. Good luck to you too. Mr. Damie DML says, James, have you ever done a collar with Mark Southerns? I think you and Southerns on the same stream would be out of this world. Checks notes. Probably evening of Tuesday, August the 6th, I think. I might have that slightly wrong. Could be Wednesday, August the 7th. But I'll be sitting down with Mark Southerns, I can definitely say, on the evening of Monday, August the 5th. You'll probably get it the next day as part of Correspondent Week. So as our Nottingham Forest correspondent, Mark will be guesting on Correspondent Week and will feature throughout the season on Clash of Correspondents, no doubt. I have guested on Black Box, although just with Az, I think, when Mark wasn't on. Happy to guest anytime, kids, although very busy at the moment. And we had Mark and me and Suj both had Mark and Az on a summer podcast we did a couple of years ago as well. So yeah, a lot of love for Mark, super guy. Might even get to spend Christmas with Mark this year, as we got Forest away on Boxing Day, so we might both be travelling up together on Boxing Day to Forest. I don't know if he'll be allowed. I'll be allowed. I'll be up there, I think. So yeah, a lot of love for Mark. I don't know that ever done a collar. I don't know what that means, or if it was meant to mean something else. But yeah, there'll be plenty of pods with Mark again. And as said yesterday, very much recommend their work. And I have not watched it yet, but I know Mark and Az went into detail on the BPS system on their stream. Oh gosh, last night or the night before, and I will catch up on it. David Fawn says, "Are you still considering bench boost game week 1? It's probably been clear. If so, is the plan to basically use it as a free hit and bench boost together, and then wildcard game week 2 to get the City and Chelsea boys in? Yep, probably that, mate. Yeah, there's a high probability. I need to look at it properly, David, because I've not had time yet. And on Monday's pod, what I really want to do is look at some fixture swings, and that's also going to help some of my own thinking. But there's a fair chance, yes, that my team for game week 1 might have a lot of red in it. And in game week 2, it might have a lot of blue in it. That is a possibility. USF1324 says, happy Friday, lad. After the changes to bonus points, is it a better option to keep 4.5 and below defenders? Yeah, there is a case for that, as just mentioned. But let's not forget that someone like a Josko Vardio is potentially going to be really powerful. If Trent can reproduce what he did a couple of years ago, then you can kind of do what you want with your BPS. He's still going to return extraordinarily well for you, right? I think we can make too much of it, and it's fine that people want to look at it. There is an impact. I think a lot of it, the more I hear, seems to, and I've not done the proper research. I'll let other people do that and pick up the pieces. Feels like there will be an impact, but a lot of it will be minimalistic. There will be an impact certainly on defensive players who concede a lot of goals. I think we can see that. But I don't think it's going to be huge, dramatic, game-changing differences. If a Josko Vardio puts you 7 goals on the board across the season, you're still going to want him, I would suggest. Joe Pickerel says, if the Premier League had a Netflix-type app where everyone single game was on there but was extortionate, would you pay more than you should for the subscription, or would you dodgy stream the games? I would pay, mate. I would pay for peace of mind. I will happily say, I have no shame in saying this, that when Tottenham had a couple of games in the COVID period that were like 7 o'clock on a Sunday night or 12 o'clock on a Sunday night and you had to pay 15 quid for them, I paid 15 quid for them. Why did I do that? Because I'd rather watch the game on my television in high definition and know that it's going to work. I don't need stress when I'm watching Tottenham. I just want peace of mind and to watch the game. So, yeah, happily. We've done podcasts on this and on Patreon over the course of the season. I would happily pay £30 for a Tottenham away game, the same price as a ticket if I couldn't get one, like for peace of mind, happily, no problem. And I realise that's an unpopular opinion, but I would. The only way I'll be going down the stream route is if Tottenham play at 3 o'clock in an away game and it's somewhere like Bournemouth. Thankfully, it's a midweek this year, so it'll be on the telly, I'm fairly certain. It's a 3 o'clock game and I can't get a ticket for something like Bournemouth. Then I've got to go down the dodgy stream route. Otherwise, I don't want to go down that route. I'll do it if I have to. But if I can pay extra and watch a game and quality picture on my television, I would rather do that. Ahmed Khalifa says, what do you think of midfield of Salah, Eze and Kunku Gordon and a 4.5 in an effort to also have Haaland on your team? Yeah, fine, mate. There's nothing there I'm going to tell you that you don't already know, right? Salah's a good option, Eze's a good option, and Kunku's a good option, Gordon's a good option. Caveats being, when does Gordon come back for pre-season? Similar with Eze, but also concerns about transfer links with him and where and how much is Nkunku going to feature in pre-season? What's the impact? Because I think, Nkunku's in mine at the moment. I think that's someone who might end up in everyone's team, possibly. Greedish Castle says, will Harry Kane win a trophy next season? Yes, mate. Yes, he will win a trophy with Bayern Munich next season. Shamil Galani says, hey, pal, I hope you talked about a potential wildcard in game week 2. What's the reasons for this? There's a swing right off the bat, right? So there's potential to take advantage of. There's also, and again, we'll do a specific chip strategy podcast as well. I did allude to kind of highlighting game week 33 and 34 yesterday. We'll cover all that in good time. But it's also that with the addition of more transfers, you can make 5 free transfers potentially. Your best case scenario might be sort of like 8 teams doubling. Are you going to be able to get a good bench boost off of that? Isn't it? Is it worthwhile potentially just getting it out the way and saving on planning for it and the power of that? And then also you get a weeks of learning on new teams and new players and what you can do with that and attack things differently, like Chelsea has already alluded to as a good example. So I'm not sitting here and telling you that's what I'm going to do. I haven't thought about it nearly enough to make that conclusion. By the time I get to the final week, I will. And look, last year, I bench boosted in game week 1. Last year, as many of you will know. And the clarity on that wasn't there for me until the final, the penultimate weekend, the weekend before. I can't remember what it was. Was someone getting injured or something? And something really opened up, and it was like, yeah, this is now the right decision. Where I'd been thinking about it, but then things fell into place. Maybe it was enablers I then knew was going to play. I can't remember, but it fell into place. And I think it might be that I come to a similar conclusion this year. I'm more likely to do it this year than if you listened to me this time last year, you were going to bench boost game week 1. I probably would have laughed you out the room. But it's something that became, the more I researched, the more it became apparent I wanted to do. And I also said, by the way, in the running, that I felt it actually was a mistake in the end. Ultimately, points-wise, I don't think it made a huge difference doing it in 1 versus if I'd held it for game week 35 or 37 or whatever it was in the end. But the opportunity that I thought might not be there did present itself, and there's always that. Something could happen that could still present itself. But it's more likely that a bench boost this year is still going to feature a lot of single game week players. So there is scope. We're going to cover it. There is definitely the case to do it, I think, and use it earlier. FPL Andy says, afternoon, James. Can I ask when Correspondence Week is? You can, I have said, but it will begin on August the 5th. We haven't decided yet if it will start at 8 o'clock in the morning and finish at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, or if we might start at 6 o'clock in the evening on the Monday and finish perhaps on a Saturday afternoon. We haven't decided that yet, but the recording schedule is now, I can confirm, basically in place. I just need to map out and decide what we're going to do. But it will be Monday, August 5th, 20 podcasts inside 5 days, 1 on each club. I will do my very, very best this year to keep them to a maximum of 45 minutes. We will also that week on Patreon, which will be available for our intermediate plus tiers and above. We'll be doing summary podcasts as well, where we take the first 4 podcasts, summarise them, bang, the next 4 summarise them as well. I do realise for some people they don't have the time to listen to all 20, but I also know that some of you do. Pepe says, with less double game weeks this season, would it be insane to risk a game at 1 bench boost? I feel like I've kind of covered this. João Pedro, Areola, Davis Vardio at the moment in my bench. I mean, if you're going down that route, I'd look at some different players, and we've kind of highlighted a potential concern with João Pedro. Leif Davis has got Liverpool opening day. I'd be looking at some different players under that circumstance. But yeah, as covered previously, it's under consideration. Pravish the House says, hey James, how happy are you with Spurs transfer so far? In your position, what position should we target next? So, I don't want to ruin the Patreon podcast for our patrons later, but you might feel a little bit different today than... I'm very concerned about blocking the path of some of these young boys. And most of us knew that Lucas Bergvall was going to come in and be part of the first team setup. Most of us are aware of Mikey Moore's incredible potential, and at 16 it is largely still that at the moment. What I don't think most Tottenham fans probably were aware of sort of maybe 4 or 5 months ago was that there's more gems in there. The development of Tyrese Hall in central midfield. Will Lancashire is beginning to look like someone who could be a really good number 9. Alfie Devine was kind of out of sight, out of mind last year. Another really good attacking midfield player. And that's why I feel like the Werner deal makes way more sense the more you think about it. Like him coming in on a loan and again for another year gives a lot of these younger boys, which, I mean, that's essentially probably going to be Mikey Moore's position in the longer term, gives them another year of development. And you've got a player there with good experience to learn from. Rather than you bust your gut and spend 80 million on a player to play there and he blocks Mikey Moore's path. Don't block these kids' path. Tottenham's best chance of winning what I want, which is ultimately a league title, is a group of really good young players coming together and gelling and it becoming something amazing in the way it did with Walker, Rose, Dyer, Dele, Harry Kane and others. That's the best chance Tottenham have got. And I realise Walker particularly was experienced, but that kind of good young homegrown element, I think you know what I'm getting at. That's the best chance we've got. And so for Tottenham, that's years away, but then plan for that eventuality, get towards it. So I'm conscious of that. I think a new number 2 goalkeeper is a massive priority for me because I don't think we can expect Vicario to play 38 games again. I think that's really important. but I'm not hearing Tottenham getting linked for any goalkeepers. I think the position I would like to immediately fix the team with would be a new number 6. Would be game-changing and transformational for Tottenham. My concern about the attacking output of the players is quite big. My concern is quite big, but I also know that the attacking kids we've got are great, and I'm aware of blocking that path. So my desire to have attacking players isn't as big as it was, because I think there's some really good kids there. So if you said you can lock up one player, I mean, yeah, get me Rodri from City. You obviously can't do that. But get me that profile player. I'm concerned that I think there are other clubs looking for that profile player at the moment. I think Arsenal might be one. And that presents a challenge. So very difficult to fix that position at the moment. But that's what I'd want to do most. And replacement fullbacks. To replicate Udogie and Porro is very difficult. So it's more probably as much about getting better understudies. Because that back four, I know it conceded, and the goalkeeper, I know he conceded a lot of goals last year. But if they all stay together, I think most people would be happy if that's Tottenham's back four for the next few years. A Woods, no, sorry, I'll come back to you in a second. Joe Pickle says, further to my Netflix style question, do you like that concept for one hub to show all games, or would you rather have the current system? Yeah, I people overseas think it's unbelievable that for me legally, if Tottenham are playing away at 3:00 and I can't get a ticket, the only way for me to legally watch the football match is actually to leave the country. It's absurd. And I know the reasons why it's in place, and I've covered this to death in terms of, you know, protecting lower league football in our pyramid. And I get all that, and no one's more respectful of that than me, and I get it. But it's absurd. It's absurd that I can't pay to watch my team at 3:00 on a Saturday in 2024. It's madness. So anything that allows Matt, as a selfish perspective, yes, I'm happy to have on board. I think, you know, people being asked to have multiple subscriptions and pay for that, there's the cost element. But I pay it. I pay it all. But would I prefer it to be in one place? Yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if Netflix took over the Premier League and stuff, yeah, cool. No problem with that at all. A Wood says, afternoon, James. Hope you're well. No come with you Spurs games for me until Leicester first game. I'll be at the King Power, yeah. Trains boots. I booked my trains for Newcastle Gameweek 3 as well. Pape is in the training video posted while you've been live for your information. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I did have the impression that it was a minor problem. So, and Ange didn't say on Wednesday night that he wouldn't travel. So, yeah, that's good news. Eno says, as an Arsenal fan, I think it's best to avoid early with 3-5 tough away trips and the left back, left wing spot under some doubt. Best asset, Saka, also needs a rest. Timber and Martinelli, my eyes are on for game week 6 swing. Thank you for sharing. Kevin Holmes says, would you recommend anyone to follow for Gaffa content? Yeah, there's the EFL Fantasy Podcast, guys, with Angus and Dan. I'm not sure if Jamie's going to be involved this year or not, but yeah, they're a must for Gaffa content. I think the Man On podcast will cover Gaffa again. There's guys on Gaffa. There's a few out there, and a lot of really good Twitter accounts. To be honest, if you just search Gaffa on Twitter, you'll find lots of content knocking about. The Gaffa content, the Gaffa format is really enjoyable to play. It really is. It's a high scoring format. You'll enjoy it. I would recommend that you get involved with that. Aaron Hill says, afternoon, James. Is 4 at the back viable in game week 1 to help with Haaland and Salah? Also, why do you favour Hudson-Odoi over Morgan Gibbs-White when the latter is on pens? Thank you and all the best. Pens. You still need to get them. It's true that someone like Hudson-Odoi may well win them for Morgan Gibbs-White. But I do think we can overplay pens. You'll get trends. It's probably just likely that Chelsea, for example, will probably have less pens this year than they had last year. It's probably just how it'll work out. No, I wouldn't make that decision just on pens. In terms of preferring Hudson-Odoi over Morgan Gibbs-White, it's not necessarily prefer one over the other. One is $1 million cheaper than the other, so it's combinations, right? That's then a difference. Would I prefer Hudson-Odoi and Watkins, or would I prefer Morgan Gibbs-White and Havertz? Right, these are then and it might be you prefer Morgan Gibbs-White and Havertz. That's fine, but that's then what it becomes, right? It's what can you do with that million? In terms of is four at the back viable? Yes, I think it might be actually from a price perspective. Yeah, because ultimately as well, would I rather have Pedro Porro or Hudson-Odoi? It's probably still Pedro Porro. So the more I look at that, yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. And most won't go down that route. So, as ever, play it your way. Right, I'll cover two more. OG Nods says, hey, James, late to the show, so apologies if you've covered. Did you catch Mark's breakdown of how BPS will change the outcome of bonus points moving forward? No, I haven't, but I did give it a shout out, and I have said that I will catch up on it, and also recommend it yesterday. No, I haven't. Yes, 100%, I will get round to it. And Jim Pro 100 says, what was your thoughts on third place going through in Euros? Would you keep or change? You're not going to get it to change back unless the Euros increases to 32 teams. And then quite frankly, once it changes to 32 teams, you might as well just let the old bloody continent in, aren't you? Because then that's what, 60% of the continent or so. So look, I think the group stage of the Euros format is really nice as it is for those who don't have a realistic prospects of winning the tournament. I think it's probably a bad format for those who do have a realistic prospects of winning the tournament. I have said previously on our Patreon pods that I would prefer a cleaner version, i.e. 16 teams, top two go through. I think that's cleaner. I think it's faster. I think actually this was a rare tournament where there's definitely a group of people who relate to this that actually hit a bit of fatigue watching Euro 2024, genuinely. And I don't think that should happen at a major tournament. You are also going to face that at the World Cup, where there will be 48 teams and 32 will qualify for the knockout stage, and 8 third place teams will make the last 32 knockout round. Good luck to anybody who thinks they're going to watch every game at the next World Cup, because you're not. You're not. You're not. I mean, there's obviously there's the 12 final group games where 2 teams will play at the same time. You're not watching all them back afterwards anyway either. Too much. Just too much. The solution to improving football is not more football. It's more quality football. And that doesn't mean that these people shouldn't qualify for tournaments, etc. But the let's throw in as many teams as we can is a fucking nonsense. If you want to do the World Cup clean and you want to get more teams in, that's cool. 64 teams, please. 16 groups of 4. Top 2 go through. Knockouts from the last 32. Uncle's your Bob. And on that bombshell, I'll leave it there. Adam, no, I did not end up placing that bet on Switzerland to beat England because there was enough uncertainty around England changing system. But I think you saw that it was very good value. And Will Shaw says, thanks, James. Much appreciated as always. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate everybody who contributed in the chat. Smash a like, hit the sub button. Again, if you listen on audio, the 5-star reviews go a long way. The liking and the sharing and the reviews are all massively important to us at the moment, obviously as we're heading into the start of a new season. If you want to share the Planet FPL word out to your mates, please do so. If you want to support the show, you will be able to rejoin Patreon from July the 30th. We'll probably have some more info on that for you over the next couple of weeks as well. But just leaves me to say, be nice to each other, everyone. Remember, there's a long way to go before game week 1, but play it your way. Have a great weekend, everyone. And for the benefit of those on the audio cue music, please, man shot.